tattoos. Friday night just letting loose. 103s, holy jeans, fitted hats with bygone rings. Put 'em down around the city, a little roughed up, yeah, poor boy pretty. If you like your long necks blue, I'm like you, raising hell, that's what we do. Cornbread bed, morning bread, bust our backs till our necks are red, yeah. And we stand for that flag, yeah. If you can't respect that, then you can kiss my ass. Smoke, fishing, O's, country girls on old dirt roads, putting grips, dips and lips, stand our ground, don't take no shit. Put 'em bounty around the city, little roughed up, get poor boy pretty. If you like your long necks blue, I'm like you, raising hell, that's what we do. Cornbread bed, morning bread, bust our backs till our necks are red.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida, 1401 Southwest Pine Island Lane. Farmer Joe's has the freshest produce, superior Braveheart beef, and you can fill your belly on their hot deli. Everything you need and more, Lee County's greatest grocery store. Joining me is attorney, multimedia personality, political analyst, Mr. Ford O'Connell. I'm Smokin Joe. Welcome to Cracker Culture, the podcast for real Floridians. Ford, the Durham report is demanding attention from the media. I want to look at this clip to help us understand what impact this report will have on the general public.
Now, key figures from our intelligence agencies and the media are under a microscope as they face allegations of pushing a baseless probe while also providing cover for Hillary Clinton.
Brooke Singman has more on all of it. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, good morning, Todd, Ashley. The White House is staying tight-lipped on the Durham report with no comment from President Biden as his press secretary walks off the podium when asked about the troubling revelations. Watch this.
What is the White House reaction to Special Counsel Durham's report on how the FBI handled the Trump-Russia probe?
I would leave it to the Department of Justice to speak to.
Does he agree with Special Counsel Durham that there needs to be wholesale changes at the FBI?
Again, that is with the Department of Justice. That's not something that I'm going to speak from the podium. As you just stated in your question, we believe in an independent Department of Justice. That's what the president said when he was running, and that's what the president has said the last 2 years. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in Japan.
Durham's report found the FBI had no factual evidence of collusion between then-candidate Donald Trump and Russia before the 2016 presidential election. It also says CIA Director John Brennan briefed then-President Barack Obama, then-Vice President Joe Biden, and other top national security officials about a Hillary Clinton plan to tie Trump to Russia in July 2016. And now all eyes are on Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, one of the most outspoken members of Congress when it comes to accusing Trump of collusion.
So there's clear evidence on the issue of collusion, and this adds to that body of evidence. There's ample evidence of collusion in plain sight, and that is true.
Have Democrats found any evidence of collusion?
Yes, we have. You can see evidence in plain sight on the issue of collusion, pretty compelling evidence.
According to the Durham report, one of Schiff's aides intimidated a university researcher who refused to discuss Trump's supposed ties to Russia in November 2018.
Now, you know, there's a lot coming out in this Durham report, and I'm glad you're here to talk with us about this, Ford, because here's what I want to say. We're going to find out that everything that the Trump supporters believed all along, we were right, and the people on the left are still going to call bullshit, and nothing's going to change. Nobody's going to jail. Nothing's going to happen with this. Am I wrong or am I right?
I think you're 100% right. Let's start from the top of it. I think it's total vindication for Donald Trump. He was framed. And what the 300-plus page Durham report says is that the FBI should have never opened an investigation into Trump-Russia because they had absolutely no evidence to do so. And further, the evidence that they relied upon to open it was the fake Steele dossier, which they knew was fake. And the Obama White House knew that as well. But yet still, the Clinton campaign colluded with the FBI and other officials to push a baseless narrative. They tried to interfere in an election. They undermined a presidency for 3 years. To me, this is 100 times worse than whatever the Democrats spew about January 16th. But unfortunately, I do believe you're right. Heads will not roll. And the reason why they won't roll is because there are too many people in Washington involved in pushing this nonsense that harmed a presidency and a country. And the only thing that's happened so far is Clinton's paid a fine. And I think one FBI official was punished but given no jail time for falsifying surveillance reports. That's it.
Well, we hear reports, and I mean, there's fake news all the time claiming that there's going to be arrests and this, and we hear it all the time. But realistically, now let's look with this particular deal. We've got this Biden crime family. Now, what's to say, and I've talked to you about this off the air, what's to say Joe Biden just pardons Hunter, and then he steps down and Kamala steps up and pardons Joe Biden. Everything's fresh and clean again.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that theory. And I will say this. We just had the Durham report where they framed Donald Trump, had no evidence to do so. This is the FBI and the Department of Justice. Let's look back to the 2020 election, to your point. In that election, I've got the CIA and other intel officials burying a report about the Hunter Biden laptop, because the Hunter Biden laptop's not about Hunter Biden. It's, to your point, about Joe Biden. So now this whole thing is occurring again, election interference in a whole other way. And I think you're right. If Joe Biden gets caught in the crosshairs, somebody is going to wind up pardoning Hunter Biden and silencing that too. So their ability is not only to spread a rumor and smear people, but they can also bury news stories. And I think that is really what's going on here. And I don't think the framers of the Constitution ever contemplated the idea that the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, whatever you want to call it, intel, they always thought that they were going to be neutral. They were never going to become political. And here we have an actual constitutional crisis. And yet the media doesn't seem to care because they won Pulitzers off of nonsense.
Well, and just from a regular guy, you can't help but get pissed off because now, look, if I got as much as a jaywalking ticket, I ain't going to get pardoned for nothing. Now, you got these people up here who have realistically robbed the American people, and they're going to walk away unscathed. What, they're going to have somebody say something bad, and that all goes away,
People should... You're right. People should be pissed off because the American people were robbed. No one at the end of the day is going to be held accountable. I mean, you already have the media saying, oh, this Durham report's a dud. The bad actors are already gone out of the FBI and the DOJ. Unfortunately, many of these bad actors are still doing the same things currently in the government. So this is even bigger than the Durham report, to my point. And it doesn't appear that anyone is ever going to be held accountable, whether it's Hillary Clinton and Russiagate or Biden and the laptop and the corruption and getting paid by America's actors. Think about this for a minute. What essentially the media told you for the last 7 years is that Trump was in bed with America's enemies. And at the same time, the media buried a story about Joe Biden taking money from America's enemies. Think about the paradox.
But it's been, and you can say Biden, but look at Hillary. She destroyed all that email evidence and everything else, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. It just seems like once you're in that cabal, you've got a free reign to do whatever you want. You're untouchable.
That's the scary part, is that there are two standards of justice in this country, and this is evidence. One for the Democrats and the elites, and then one for Republicans and everyday people. I mean, that is the whole problem here, is the different application of justice. And in that Durham report, to something else you raised, they actually express that there is a different treatment of Hillary Clinton, that they had a lot more reason to investigate her even beyond the email servers and dealings with foreign countries, and they chose not to do it. Why? Because of politics. Yet their standard manual in the FBI and the DOJ warranted that she be investigated and not Donald Trump.
Well, now, what does it say when you got Karine Jean-Pierre trying to mansplain her way off the stage?
Well, they obviously recognize that they don't want to say anything, and they're hoping that the mainstream media who carried the Trump-Russia hoax will bury this Durham report so that they don't have to talk about it. If you ever notice, the Democrats never want to talk about the truth unless it helps them, which is why they've pretty much been lying for the last 7 years.
Well, now, look, the liberal media has had no choice but to speak on this Durham report. However, there's always a little end at the very end. They tell you everything that happened. Yep, Trump was not found, nothing on Trump, but in the end, but there is this. They always try to change it up, switch it up on you. But, that even, like I said, even CNN's having to speak on this now.
Well, what's amazing, Joe, is the CNN headline was probably the best headline for the public, even over, say, Fox News or Newsmax, because they basically said, Durham report, Trump-Russia investigation should have never been opened by FBI. I mean, that's as good as it gets. But you're right. I went through the article, and they do try to downplay it. They're going to try to downplay it until the only people left talking about it, Joe, are me, you, and Trump.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know what's going on over at CNN, but I think after that Trump town hall meeting they had or whatever, their ratings went through the roof. I can't believe it. People are outraged over this, that, here's the liberal media, and Trump owned them. I don't know if you got to watch any of it or not.
I did. I think what's scary here is you're absolutely right. Donald Trump made CNN great again, at least, for one night, shall we say. But at the same time, you hear journalists in Washington, D.C. and across the country screaming about the First Amendment and that they have a right to cover things, but they only want the First Amendment for themselves, and then they get to pick and choose who covers. I can't believe that we have a media today that is screaming for suppression. And the problem is our constitutional republic does not work if everyone just lives in their siloed media world. We have to listen to at least both sides of an argument, because if you have an argument, Joe, as you and I both know, we're old enough to know this, there's at least two sides of the argument, if not more.
Absolutely. Well, Ford, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about Title 42, which that affects Florida, and I've talked to you about this. I want to, and I look at it from an agriculture point of view, and I want to play a clip here. And then after I play the clip, I want to discuss Title 42. I'm talking about how it affects Florida. And let's look at this.
For decades, South Florida has been home to migrants, and many times they do work that others may not want to do or are able to do. But a new immigration crackdown by the Florida legislature and Governor Ron DeSantis is now making it harder for them to live and work in the state.
And even though the policy is not yet in effect, CBS News Miami's Gabriel Arzola shows us how it has already shaken the undocumented community along with employers they work for.
A recent survey from the Migration Policy Institute says there are around 800,000 undocumented immigrants right here in the state of Florida, many taking jobs like construction and agriculture, but that may not be for long.
Around South Florida, labor workers are becoming more and more scarce by the day, according to some employees.
People aren't showing up to work because they're scared of being deported.
And critics say Senate Bill 1718 is to blame.
None on the desk, Mr. Speaker.
According to the bill, businesses could face up to a $10,000 fine per undocumented employee, and the state could revoke their license. For construction workers like Jose, he says half of the workers are already gone.
Many workers are leaving thinking they're going to be deported, so they're going to other states.
The bill also includes hospitals. Each facility that accepts Medicaid has to submit that person's immigration status. According to the Florida governor's website, taxpayers paid more than $226 million in health care costs for undocumented migrants last year. Now, working migrants like Juan say they're being threatened daily.
We are being treated like delinquents. They talk about ICE and police, and everything here is just really uncomfortable right now.
With the tens of thousands of migrants coming through the Texas border, Governor DeSantis says this bill should deter illegal immigrants from coming to Florida. But for those that are already here, like Maria, she says she'll stay, pray, and continue to work to help her family in hopes that she won't be deported.
Working hard to help my family seems impossible, but I just have to pray to God that everything works out.
The bill still needs to be signed by the governor, but once that happens, this law will take effect July 1st.
Now, Ford, this is what I don't think that average people that's not involved with agriculture understands. This $1,000 per person employee fine. Okay, that the way that bill reads is if you're in agriculture, you might own the farm. You're the farmer. You're gonna have people under you. It's just like a whole structured business till you got crew leaders and things like this. So what happens the way this bill's structured, because these crew leaders are licensed, if they pick these gentlemen up on a bus, even though they're technically not their employees, they get fined $1,000 per person if they're illegal. Now, realistically, these crew leaders might not have any knowledge because they ain't part of HR. So this is a very bad bill when it comes for agriculture. Not because the reason it's a bad bill because of agriculture is you see the workers are already leaving before it's even signed. It's going to raise the prices of everything that is grown in the state of Florida astronomically, and you could see almost like a tomato being $10, $15.
Well, I think that, look, there's definitely going to be a period of adjustment and confusion. There's no question. I think in the short run, you're right. When it comes to some basic consumer goods, consumers are going to pay more. But I also think that however the message spread among migrants, the bill that is being signed by Ron DeSantis, or going to be signed by Ron DeSantis, is about deterrence, not deportation. Only the federal government can engage in deportations, and only local police can actually detain people on that basis. But after a while, if ICE doesn't come and pick them up, they have to release them. So this is, I think that there is some confusion. I do agree it's going to require a period of adjustment.
Hold on, here's the confusion. This is what's scaring the migrants, is it says if they go to a doctor, they're going to find out whether they're documented or not, and they're going to report them. These people are not going to seek out health care, not even for their children, because they're afraid of this bill. They don't understand it. They don't see it as a deterrent, because that's probably the biggest thing. The fact that they put in there, if they use medical facilities, they will be looked into.
Look, there is going to be some bumps and hardships along the way, and I will say this: remember why we talk about, at least in Florida, why we talk about giving on health insurance and medical care is because that's the biggest portion of the state budget. And and if you've got somebody with a green card, somebody with a visa, they don't have to worry about that. The problem is, to your point, is what happens to everybody else. So, I mean, again, I tip my hat to Ron because it is about deterrence. But I do agree with you. If I'm the governor's office, what I'm going to be interested in is making sure that employers and independent contractors know exactly what it is they must do to comply, because you're absolutely right. There could be a situation that could disrupt the supply chain and the cost over time. But I do believe given past things, this will be worked out. The only question is how long it's going to take.
Well, and again, I asked you about this. I talked to several people that have been here for years or had married people that have been here for years that had come over and, for whatever reason, they've been going through the process. And they're telling me, look, we've been paying lawyers for years, and this bill scares us because we haven't got nothing finalized. And what do we do if they come take our wives or something and send them back?
Well, I think that this bill is a direct result of Biden's no border policies. You have to realize that. Remember, what Biden can do is, look, to have a successful, secure border, you have to deter people from coming to America. You have to detain people once they're in America, and you have to deport them in a timely order. Biden is not detaining anyone or deporting anyone. In fact, he's had the lowest number of deportations in the modern era of the presidency in this country. So, what are you going to do if you're Ron DeSantis? You're going to deter. And I said this when this bill passed. There's some things I would have liked to have been strengthened, but I did say that you're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way. I do think one of the most heartening things in this bill is that local governments can't be giving out state ID cards on the taxpayer's dime. I think that that's important because we have such a problem. I hear you. It causes an issue for agriculture. It causes issues for a lot of large employers in the state of Florida. But I do think that a lot of our employers just need to be presented with the rules, what's right and what isn't. And over time, this will work in the best interest of everybody. But I do agree with you on another point real quick that we all often talk about, and that is the visa program. What kills me is the Democrats talk about comprehensive immigration reform. They're talking about amnesty. And what really needs to be fixed in Washington, D.C., besides the president enforcing the laws on the books, is, to your point, an H-2A visa program. That needs to be streamlined so you can take care of the needs like we're talking about with agriculture in Florida.
Yeah, and they do need to expand the H-2A program. They also need to open up the door for more contractors in the H-2B program, which, and people don't understand that I'm an H-2A contractor. I can bring people from Mexico to work. An H-2B contractor can bring people from Mexico to work also. The difference is my people can only work in agriculture. An H-2B contractor, his people can work construction and those type of jobs. You
Correct.
Can't mix them. I think they ought to be blended for the simple reason it's a lot easier as a farmer when you got a bad crop or you're waiting for something to come in to put this guy over in a different area doing something else. But that's not legal under the current H-2A, H-2B program. I do think they ought to have more working visas for migrants. I think that, I think that they ought to be a little more open with the H-2A and H-2B program. And there's even an H-2C program that nobody talks about. But I would like to see that we are able to keep the economy striving while protecting our border. And to the point, there's one person that could fix this now.
Well, there is one person who can fix this now, and that's Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
There is nothing that Ron DeSantis can do when it comes to the alphabet soup of visas, H-2A, H-2B, as we discussed, not to bog viewers down, but that's exactly right. This can be fixed by Joe Biden. He chooses not to. He chooses to endanger the lives of the migrants. He chooses to endanger the lives of Americans, and he's killing us with fentanyl because he does not want to recognize that China and Mexico are working in cahoots to poison America.
Well, and, I'm going to move on to DeSantis here now. DeSantis, he has not announced that he's running for president. All indications is pretty much pushing that to be true. I got a clip. I want to look at this.
On the minds of almost everyone at this Sioux Center event, will Governor Ron DeSantis announce a White House run?
Today's the day. Really, is it?
No announcement, but
Cool. You like it?
Iowans did get almost everything else you'd expect from a presidential candidate, from the meet and greets.
No, after watching all the good stuff you've done in Iowa, it may be that Florida's the Iowa of the Southeast, so we'll see.
To the stump speech, which included support for a border wall, scaling down federal bureaucracy, fighting wokeism, and several not at all subtle swings at former President Donald Trump.
Governing is not about entertaining. Governing is not about building a brand or talking on social media and virtue signaling. It's ultimately about winning and about producing results. And that's what you've done in Iowa, and that's what we've done in Florida.
DeSantis is having a good couple of days in Iowa. Besides packing rooms, he's snagged at least 37 presidential endorsements from Iowa state lawmakers, including heavy hitters like the Iowa House Majority Leader.
We need a leader that actually is focused on the future. Now, yes, he has not announced yet, but I am trying to work with him, encourage him and his team to say yes to this opportunity, to get out there and fight the fight that I know that he's got in him.
DeSantis' super PAC, Never Back Down, said to expect more of the same as Iowans start to see Ron as Don without the baggage.
The more they know of the man, the more they like him. And when you couple that with unapologetic leadership and legislative success like they've seen in Florida, people get really excited about that.
One of those already very excited.
We are waiting for Governor DeSantis to announce. We're ready.
Kay Quirk, who started her own grassroots effort to get Iowans to back DeSantis.
I don't like drama. I love the fact that Governor DeSantis just gets it done.
But so many others we talked to said they're on the fence.
I don't know him well enough to know yet.
I don't know. I'm going to have to wait and see yet. There's a whole year and a half yet.
And Trump had his fans as well, some hoping for a compromise between the two.
Probably the Republican dream ticket would be Trump, DeSantis.
Now, I'll put that in there for a reason. Me and you have talked about this over and over. Explain to our viewers the reason we will not see a Trump DeSantis or a Trump Donald's ticket.
Because there's confusion in the Constitution about whether or not two people from the same state can serve on that ticket. According to the way the Electoral College works, they have to be from two separate states because electors cannot vote for someone for their state to be on that presidential or vice presidential ticket. That is why we have never in the history of this country had two people from the same state on a ticket. And the closest that we ever had it was 2000, when really George Bush and Dick Cheney both hailed from Texas. And Dick Cheney was worried about possible confusion about that law and therefore went back to Wyoming to register to make sure that they wouldn't run into this. In a lot of ways, it's not settled law, but if you get through this campaign and they're there and the Supreme Court rules that you can't do this, then essentially 30 electoral votes go off the table because both gentlemen are from Florida, which is the number of electoral votes you get from Florida if you win the state. So there's a lot of confusion. Think about it like Resign to Run. People who say, oh, you can have two people from the same state. Well, look, Ron DeSantis said, well, we don't really need to pass this Resign to Run law, but we will pass it anyway just to make sure we're safe. Does that make sense? Again, there is confusion about whether or not you can do it, but there's a reason why it hasn't been done because people don't want to get caught with their pants down if a judge rules that they're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't know. I just thought that was funny because we've talked about it and people keep rattling that same old jargon about the two Florida candidates. But now what was really important to me is Ron was really playing to the people of Iowa. They are the Iowa's just like Florida. Come on, man.
Hey, look, here's what's going on. Ron DeSantis is trailing Donald Trump by 40 points in the national polls in the Republican primary, okay? Iowa is the first contest in the Republican primary. And what he's hoping is if he can get enough endorsements and corner voters and possibly win the Iowa caucus, what he's hoping is that he can change the narrative. Because when you get in a presidential campaign, it's not about what is the total nationally or what is it in this state. It goes in an order. It goes Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. And if you can build enough momentum along the way, then you could conceivably take the nomination away from Donald Trump. I don't think it's going to happen, even if he does win in Iowa. The last time a Republican won the Iowa caucus and won the Republican presidential nomination is all the way back to 2000 when it was George W. Bush, my friend.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, this is just a common man viewpoint. I can see how people in Iowa would like Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is the guy that you want to have a beer with. However, Donald Trump's the guy you want to get a hooker with. So the Iowans ain't going to go to that, you know what I mean? So I can see where he could win them over. But, you know, Trump went, his was stormed out, but Trump was there as also in Iowa.
Yeah, they've both been Iowa. Obviously, DeSantis thinks that Iowa is a chance for him to catch lightning in a bottle if he can pull it out. And, you know, Trump wants to make sure that he wins Iowa or makes a really good showing. And, you know, and that's where we are. Let me put it this way to you. There's a woman in that clip who said, well, it's a year and a half wait. That's not true. Actually, the Iowa caucus is going to be in January 2024. So it's 6 months away, basically. And, you know, they haven't settled on the date, but that's how close we are to deciding who the next Republican presidential nominee is going to be.
All right. Wow. Well, Ford, I want to tell you about what's going on in Cape Coral, Florida here. They have plans to eliminate advisory boards and move to town hall interaction with residents. Now, I did reach out to Council Member Cummins today before I wanted to talk about this and ask her opinion on it. And she was very forthcoming about the reason that they were eliminating. Some of the boards seem to be useless, and there is a lot of reports and rumors about the water board, which is one of them that's going to go away, discusses anything but water. The finance department advisory board, that was going away. There's several, and what the city believes is that they can get more direct interaction with the residents in the town hall meeting. However, I see that differently. I feel like that an advisory board and a town hall meeting are two totally different things. Where as an advisory board, you have people that do a deep dive into what the community needs and presents it to the board. Whereas in a community town hall, you're just discussing your future plans. So is it really wise to eliminate these advisory boards?
No, I don't think so. I'm big on input and seeing various different things and being able to see the plans. I think what's seductive about town halls is people saying, well, I can be heard in one place. But after I've seen how our REC meetings go and how I see our school board free-for-all shouting fest work out, I'm more interested in making sure to have bodies that can present the most information possible. Again, it's up to citizens to do their duty and find out the information from. I think having more areas of input is better.
Okay, now let me put this to you. On these advisory boards, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't know exact rules, but they're supposed to be under the guidance of a council member and another staff member from the city. Now, if these meetings are out of control, whose fault is it really? If you are not in control of what you're guiding these people towards, that's what we're paying you for. They're going to say, no, we're not going to talk about furries in the water district. We're going to talk about water. Who's really at fault here for?
Well, that would be the council members and the managers now, wouldn't it, if it's not working out? I mean, what do you pay and elect these people to do if they can't have extended government information sessions and allowing the people to see how the sausage is made?
And I just don't understand why they don't look at this the way I'm seeing it as a regular person. You're going to take away less investigation into things, and it's going to be more dictatorial than anything else.
I think that's exactly right. Less information from the voters is never good. Now, I understand a lot of people don't attend these boards and stuff, and I understand that. I've seen it even, with the fire commission up in Lehigh Acres. They don't attend these things enough, and they should, because real decisions are being made. But when you take information away from people, again, that puts more power in the hands of elected officials and city managers that I don't think that we necessarily need. I'm more for decentralized power.
Well, while we're talking about Cape Coral, I want to bring
Now, that
up,
doesn't mean that some of the boards don't need to go away. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying the idea of boards in general.
Right. Well, while we're still talking about Cape Coral, I wanted to bring up the fact that former Cape Coral City Manager Rob Hernandez, who had made accusations of discriminatory practices against the board, that was following his ouster when the board declined to renew his contract. The report released from the investigation found no evidence of discriminating practices. Ford, there's something fishy with Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, I think there is. And the fact that this Gray Robinson, the statewide Florida law firm, conducted this investigation, and I tip my hat to the people for hiring them to do that. I mean, I'm still digging through that report, but it seems to me that there's something not right here. And it may be that Mr. Hernandez is very good at spinning tails.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to bring that up when we was talking about Cape Coral, because that's been a controversial piece of information that's been going on over in Cape Coral, amongst other things. But I know that there's still one investigation still open, but the discriminatory practice was found to be false.
And remember, Hernandez is claiming that Cape Coral owes him $1.16 million. Well, I want to know why exactly it is they owe him that, because, man, maybe I need to become the city manager at Cape Coral.
I'm telling you, I got to change my career path. Well, the field's starting to get active, and candidates are starting to throw their hat in the ring. Lee County School Board is gearing up for our first elected superintendent. Now, reports that current superintendent Christopher Bernier plans to try and hold his seat, and sources also report that Chris Patrica will not be running for District 3, and Miller Wright, Mr. Bill Ribble, is going to seek the District 3 seat. Ford, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think some things are left better to geriatrics ward.
Well, I'm always hesitant when a Millwright seeks a school board position, because what it means is the people of Lee County are going to get screwed. And to what extent, we don't know, but every single time Terry Miller seems to cycle new people in, and nothing gets better. In fact, it's hard to imagine, but things sometimes get worse. And I think this is a real problem. Look, I know Bill Ribble. Here's what I have to say. The man is experienced from his work at, I believe it was UPS. He's got things. Why should he be sitting on a school board teaching, weighing over the matters of our children? I don't know what his credentials to do that are, other than his relationship with Terry Miller.
And I don't know, and I, not saying nothing bad, but I mean, the guy's, he's been around forever. The name's out there, but he just lost 3 consecutive small races. How is he going to win a school board race unless the Millerites jump in there and throw all the money behind it?
Oh, wait, you just said it. The Millerites. The Millerites are going to continue to recycle whatever they want, and they're going to pick and choose who they want. Is Bill Ribble the best candidate? I don't know. If he's the best candidate, God bless him. Hope he wins. But as of right now, it appears that the Millerites are circling Bill Ribble. They're going to try to clear the field for him. So anyone who's actually really qualified to do this position will be, how shall I say, hushed out of the race. And then basically Terry Miller is going to be running the school board some more.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now, I want to talk about another Millerite while we're on Millerites. I've received a few inquiries as to where the hell your former opponent, Tiffany Esposito, has been. As I can't find anything, and she is champion for Southwest Florida, I tried hard to get answers for the people. I reached out to Senator Jonathan Treetop Martin, knowing that they are both Millerites, and that the fact that Treetop endorsed Esposito, I thought he would offer some insight. Treetop has declined to answer. Ford, what has Tiffany done since she won this election?
Well, I'm scratching my head still. If you know, then you are a much smarter person than I am. It appears that what she's doing is she's doing the bidding of big business in Florida and not serving the people of Southwest Florida, which is exactly why she got the money in the race at the end to win. We all know it. And unfortunately, and what's the one thing that she championed in the newspaper? Taking away local control and giving it to state control. Why? Because that's what the developers wanted. Everyone knows what's going on here.
It's incredible. I'm gonna go ahead and move away from that. I want to talk about this story because this is huge. This is the biggest Ponzi scheme in the state of Florida. I'm going to play you a clip and then we'll talk.
Tonight at 6, an I-team investigation into one of the biggest 2022 IRS fraud cases. It involved a Sarasota man who financed mansions, private jets, and luxury cars by luring 700 victims into a complex multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme.
And all new tonight, investigator Jackie Calloway speaks exclusively to those who lost their life savings and the agents who finally brought him down.
Thunderous applause for the charismatic man who appeared to possess the Midas touch.
Everyone that does business with us walks away better than they started.
Undercover FBI agents shot this video in 2018 as Michael DeCorda took center stage in front of hundreds of clients. The guests, including Ken and Patty Catter, believed DeCorda was an investment genius. In reality, he was the central figure in what authorities call one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in Florida history.
He had invited us to Christmas parties that were very elaborate.
We deliver what we say.
Friends introduced the Catters to DeCorda, and in 2018, the couple invested $100,000 in DeCorda's company, Oasis International Group, based in Sarasota.
I finally trusted somebody to do something with our money to help it grow.
To understand the sacrifice behind the Catters' investment, you'd have to go back to 2007. Ken, a combat-wounded disabled veteran, nearly lost his life in a roadside bombing in the Iraq War.
We at OIG appreciate your participation.
The $100,000 the couple gave DeCorda was the money the military paid out for his injuries.
Mike just kind of oohed and awed me and Ken, and finally I was like, wow, we have a friend. He's not going to screw us over.
DeCorda convinced investors Oasis was reaping huge profits through foreign exchange trading. And he appeared successful with 2 mansions in Lakewood Ranch, exotic vehicles, and chartered jets for luxury vacations in Europe and the Cayman Islands.
We tend to think of Ponzi schemes as pyramid schemes. So you bring in new people who pay great returns to the people who were in at the beginning, but it's not sustainable over time.
Dr. Victor Clark is an economics professor at Florida Gulf Coast University.
People think it could never happen to them. Everybody can get trapped up in a Ponzi scheme.
That happened occasionally.
From 2011 to 2018, FBI agent Rick Volp and IRS investigator Sean Batch say DeCorda trapped more than 700 people who forked over more than $80 million.
Unfreaking believable.
You know, I think this is a time that we have to put out a PSA to people in Southwest Florida. If something sounds too good to be true, chances are it probably is. And, you know, my heart goes out to the Cotter family, the ones who forked over that $100K. But apparently this gentleman, DeCorda, he built $80 million from 700 different people. And, you know, that's how this works. And unfortunately, it's something that spreads by word of mouth. You suck in the initial investors. You give them back a 12, 13% return. They go and tell everyone in the community how wonderful you are. And then eventually, you know, it's unsustainable. You lose your money. This DeCorda guy is going to get 23 years in jail, but he got to live high on the hog for what, 10, 12 years off of this?
Man.
I mean, people will take the risk. And that's assuming that you're actually going to catch most of these people or they're not going to flee the country themselves.
Yeah, but he was smooth, man. That was a pretty elaborate scheme. I mean, well, I guess that's why it's the biggest ever was. He knew how to operate it. I mean, sometimes you see things like that and you just can't believe that people are that gullible. But the way he set it up, it was kind of.
Yeah, and to that point, I've seen people like DeCorda. I mean, they're the type of people that can sell ice to an Eskimo. If that makes sense. And unfortunately, in Florida, we have a lot of retirees, early retirees. Remember, just
A
in
lot of
Southwest
Eskimos wanting ice in Florida.
That's exactly right. And plus, we also have, 1 out of 10, at least in Southwest Florida, is former military or current military. And therefore, you've got people who want to settle down and make a life for themselves or live out the sunset years of life. So they're even more susceptible than they would be in a lot of other places. And frankly, I hope, look, the feds are the ones who crack down on this, but that doesn't mean that our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, and others shouldn't be on the lookout for the same darn thing, particularly as AI advances from a distance. And when it comes to cybersecurity, those would be my future worries, because then I don't need a Dakota. I can run the scheme myself and trick you into believing I'm a real person.
Right. Yep. You're exactly right, man. And I don't think people actually think about things like that. I mean, people that's got a lot of money, they got security software, things like that. That don't protect them 100%. But if you got an average guy working, he got $500-600 in the bank. Somebody attacks them with the AI program or something like that, and they lose everything. I mean, that AI scares me as more than anything that we're dealing with these days.
Totally agree with you. Most people say, oh, one day we're going to be working for robots. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is that the average person, particularly those blue-collar folks who may not be able to tell reality, what's real and what's fake. And I think that concerns me, because when the backbone of America is tricked, what does that mean for the rest of the country? And that's why I'm very, very concerned, particularly the elderly who are on fixed incomes, and a lot of people, to your point, who are living in more rural areas, who just want to live their life.
Yeah, and the vast majority of Americans are not very financial savvy, not in the sense they should be. And, we live in a let's go get it now and we'll pay for it later, type of environment. So, these things like that can be way more detrimental to a small person, somebody with limited means.
Absolutely, because once you're backed into a corner, you're looking for a way out. And at that point, you'll throw up a Hail Mary. And if you lose, you say, oh, my gosh, I didn't know. It's truly unfortunate, but I think that you've hit a really key point and this is something that a lot of Floridians need to think about. For 15 years, we basically had no interest rates, and inflation's coming up such to catch up with a lot of the products that we buy and even the ones we budget for that we can't keep up with. So a lot of people are going to have to think about their financial future, not just when they're in times of trouble, but also good times.
Well, Ford, I was wanting to talk about the REC last night, but since we're kind of running out of limited time, I'll just say that most all of the politicians were there last night for some reason. They had one resolution that they could not get through or get passed. So in essence, the best way I could, the REC last night was a shit show, and that's pretty much all you need to know about it.
And my question to you is, when it comes to Lee and Collier County, when was the last time the REC meetings weren't a exercise in Charlie Brown trying to kick the football, so to speak?
Ford, I appreciate you joining me, brother. Folks, we love you, Florida. Love, peace, and gator grease. I'm Smokin' Joe with Ford O'Connell. We'll see you next time.